What are the best HGH supplements? There is a lot of misunderstanding about HGH or human growth hormone. Many people think that human growth hormone is simply something we inject into our body, but that's not true. Human growth hormone is naturally produced in your body by the pituitary gland, which is found at the base of the brain. HGH is a key element in all of the processes of your body, so it is vitally important to maintain HGH levels, so that your body can function properly. However, the problem is, that by the time you are in your late 20s or early 30s, your body has significantly reduced the amount of HGH it produces, and this production continues to decline as you age. How can you maintain HGH levels after the age of 30? There are two main methods: HGH injections, and HGH supplements. Even though HGH injections can be very effective at reversing much of the physical deterioration of the body associated with aging, these injections have a lot of downsides, including: they are only available by prescription. HGH injections are extremely expensive. The injections can be painful. HGH injections can have serious side effects including nerve, muscle, or joint pain, swelling, numbness and tingling of the skin, and high cholesterol levels. The other option is HGH supplements. For most of us, an HGH supplement is a far better option. If you take HGH supplements developed with a combination of natural ingredients, you can help your body increase the production of HGH naturally. The benefits of HGH supplements include: less wrinkles, bigger lean muscle mass, less body fat, better mood, decrease in fatigue, better memory, increased libido, resistance to injury. And now let's see the review of the top 3 natural HGH supplements that are currently available on the market. The most important factors that were taken into account when comparing these products are efficacy, ingredients, price. In this video you'll see a summary of our extremely well-researched review. If you are interested in learning more about these products, please download the PDF file on the link below, so you can read our full, very detailed review. Our number 1 HGH supplement is GenF20 Plus. GenF20 Plus is far superior to its competition, for various reasons. The effects of this product are wide-ranging and evidence-based. It is one of the only HGH products on the market today that is endorsed by real doctors. GenF20 Plus is clinically proven to naturally increase the body's natural HGH production. GenF20 Plus has an outstanding price per value ratio. The manufacturer provides an excellent guarantee. Our number 2 HGH supplement is GenF20. GenF20 is an outstanding product with real evidence-based results, and an excellent value per price ratio. This product deserves the high rating for several reasons. First, it is another one of those rare HGH products on the market today, that is endorsed by real doctors. Second, outstanding price per value ratio. Third, excellent guarantee. According to the manufacturer's website, GenF20 can help maintain muscle mass and strength, decrease fat deposits, keep cholesterol and LDL levels at healthy levels, and help maintain or improve memory and cognition. The manufacturer of GenF20 surveyed their customers and asked them if GenF20 delivered the results they expected. Almost 90% said that GenF20 delivered the expected results. Our number 3 HGH supplement is HGH 30,000 Nanos Spray. The grade rating is awarded to HGH 30,000 Nanos Spray, for 3 main reasons: outstanding price per value ratio, excellent bioavailability, due to the oral spray formula, an outstanding, 90 days money-back guarantee. Many customers are experiencing the following positive results from this supplement: increased energy levels, increased lean muscle mass, decreased body fat, improved sleep quality, better stamina. If you are interested in learning more about these products, please download the PDF file on the link below, so you can read our full, very detailed review. We hope that this well-researched review helps you to make an informed decision when choosing your HGH supplement.
BioBalance Healthcast, episode 144, Growth Hormones.
BioBalance Healthcast features conversations about positive aging. Your hosts are Dr. Kathy Maupin, Medical Director of BioBalance Health and a leading expert in treating symptoms of aging, and Brett Newcomb, a licensed professional counselor.
Do you remember the musical The Music Man?
Yeah, of
Do you remember the opening overture?
Yeah.
Where all the salesmen are on the train and they're singing about this Professor Harold Hill who sells boys bands on credit. And then they do this whole thing about cash for the merchandise, cash for the, and the whole point of that song, the reason I mention it is,
I was going to say, how
it's
does that
about
work?
the resistance to change. Do things the way things have always been done, and there is an inherent resistance to change in most human systems. And in medicine, there is an inherent resistance to change. And so today we're going to be talking about trying to overcome the resistance to change, about the understanding and usage of growth hormones as a treatment, both for athletics and its abuse and misuse there, and as a treatment for the elderly, what's called the fragile elderly. Yeah, as a real treatment. And the political changes and manipulations that have occurred over the last 20 years as this knowledge has become more commonly available and as doctors have begun to experiment with using it and had to overcome resistance. You know, the research will tell us that in the beginning, when people started to say, well, you know, the elderly might benefit from growth hormone replacement.
Well, let's talk about growth hormone.
Okay, let's talk
about
that.
that.
First of all,
for
what
a
is
second.
it? Maybe we should
What
define
is
our
it?
terms.
So growth hormone is a hormone from your pituitary gland, and when we are growing, it makes our bones grow, it builds our muscles, it makes us become an adult. So our highest levels are when we're children, and as we become an adult, at 20-something, it starts decreasing. And by 40, some of us notice a significant decrease in growth hormone. What that does is it decreases our muscle mass, increases our fat mass, impairs our ability to think clearly. It also makes us feel exhausted or tired, and it's an anabolic hormone, just like testosterone.
Do you think it declines in our 40s because for so many centuries that was our life expectancy at the outer limit?
We were really made to live to the end of our ability to have children. So yeah, 40. That's that, and menopause was earlier then. So 40-something was it. So as we were supposed to get old and die after we had children, and we've talked about that before.
Get off the stage and quit consuming resources.
Right. Growth hormone goes down because then we became a drag to society. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Now as we get older, if we are healthy, we are the memory for society. We are the experience. And so many of us are using the information we gathered, and we actually benefit society. So it's not something.
We have all the disposable income. Those young twerps need our stuff.
They just want to inherit it.
Yeah, exactly.
We both have young people. Yeah. Anyway, growth hormone is something that is vital to a healthy human being. Now, several things besides age interfere with this. Chronic illness, any chronic illness, can cause you to decrease growth hormone. And so therefore you get sicker during this chronic illness. If you're in the hospital for anything, even if it's an infection, your growth hormone drops.
Okay.
It's in response to your cortisol going up. That makes your growth hormone. There's lots of interactions, but basically that's all you have to remember. If you're sick or if you have an auto accident,
no matter what your age is,
your growth hormone drops. And so you become more frail when you're in the hospital for a long period of time. So that's one of the things that we notice. Also, if you have a head injury, then the pituitary gets shocked and does not make as much growth hormone. So therefore we become frail from that and we don't feel well, and our joy of living goes away, quality of living goes away. So many things hinge on growth hormone. I don't use growth hormone because I have such a great treatment in giving people testosterone, which then stimulates growth hormone. So I don't have to use it because pellet testosterone stimulates growth hormone all on its own.
So you can rejuvenate the natural production of growth hormone.
Yes.
through the administration of the bioidentical testosterone pellets.
Right. And that's ideal because the side effects of, say, someone's dosed too high on growth hormone, we don't get the side effects because the body is managing it and it doesn't increase too high. So we don't have acromegaly, which is like the bones of your face grow and look craggy and you look kind of angular. That's one of the side effects of taking too much growth hormone. Mm-hmm. So, and too much growth hormone is not good, just like too much of any hormone is not good. So I find it ideal to use testosterone to stimulate growth hormone in the normal range for both women and men. So basically that's what growth hormone does, and it's a natural hormone, and it is something that we've had and we lose as we age, especially in our 70s. That seems to be the critical period where even if we give testosterone, sometimes growth hormone decreases. Mm-hmm. So the treatment with growth hormone is the controversy, not the treatment with testosterone. That's not considered a problem at this point.
Well, and the treatment with growth hormone is a controversy because in the 1980s, it began to be used and abused by athletes and anabolic steroids. There's an article in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology.
Endocrinology and Metabolism.
And Metabolism.
That's the journal for endocrinologists.
In June of this year, 2013. And it discusses the evolution of the usage of growth hormone as physicians and endocrinologists understand it and try to use it. And one of the points the author makes is that not all good inventions are made by scientists and doctors. That mm-hmm. sometimes people out of the middle of nowhere come up with something that becomes revolutionary. And so we shouldn't just look at research labs as a place to get information. And he goes on to describe that what began to happen in the 1980s is that athletes and their coaches would create what's called a trial of one, which is not a large study mm-hmm. with a large population and rigorous boundaries and protocols, but the athletes who, at a high performance level, international competitive athletes, know their performance vectors to within seconds and millimeters. Mm-hmm. And so if you can change a variable, if you can take more orange juice, or you can take growth hormone, mm-hmm. or you can take some steroid or some activity, and then do a test competition, you can attribute any change to that particular variable. Mm-hmm. So they would do a trial of one and a trial of one, trying to find some substance that would give them an edge. And what began to happen is that in the early and mid 1980s, internationally competitive athletes were being banned and losing their awards and so on because they tested positive for these substances.
Right.
And then some doctors began to say, well, if those substances work in that way for these athletes, in terms of increasing the maximization of oxygen, increasing mm-hmm. muscle strength, increasing lean body mass,
and bones,
and bone density,
ability to get
strength.
around,
yeah,
thinking,
then perhaps that could be a useful treatment for what was called the fragile elderly. Mm-hmm. So they began to experiment with giving it to the elderly. But then the politicians got involved. Yeah. And they got involved mainly because of the outrage over sports. And
but the elderly are not competitive athletes. I mean, this is a whole different subset of the population. And why frailty is so important is that the minute you start losing muscle mass and bone, you end up being taken care of by someone else. So it's costly.
Spiral. They say exercise. If you become frail, your ability to exercise is limited, which affects your balance. You fall, you break a leg. I mean, more old people die because they break a bone and get pneumonia and die than for other reasons.
But their balance is affected by their growth hormone and their testosterone.
Strength, yeah, all of that.
Right.
We go back to testosterone. So what began to happen then is that in 1993, the federal government passed a restriction that said you cannot use growth hormone except in very limited ways that are authorized solely by the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
So one person decides.
This connects back to our previous two podcasts about Senate Bill 959, mm-hmm. because they are trying to do the same thing now with testosterone mm-hmm. that they did with human growth hormones in the 1990s. So you have a politician, an appointed, non-elected politician who unilaterally decides through their own judgment and bias.
Who aren't doctors.
Not from the science, not from the research, not from objective criteria. They have the authority subjectively to say, you can't use this unless I tell you you can use this. And so what happens then is that physicians are no longer allowed to use their training and medical judgment to say, I'd like to try this drug to treat this illness. It's an off-label treatment,
Right.
but I think it might be beneficial. Those usages are limited by law, and if you violate them, you can be punished. You can be
could go to
imprisoned,
jail.
You can be fined.
If you prescribe growth hormone for someone who needs it.
Except there's a workaround. And
Yeah.
the workaround is in the diagnostic label. And my wife was looking at this article. She saw it laying on the table this morning before I came in. And she said, oh, you're going to be talking about idiots today. And I said, no, look closer.
Idiopathic.
It's idiopathic. If the doctor says this is an idiopathic diagnosis, idiopathic is a medical term that means we don't know what the cause is, and so we don't know, suddenly something's gone wrong. We can't put a label on it and say, oh, you have cancer, or oh, this is,
You've had a head
your
injury.
liver. Yeah. So
If it's or if it's aging,
yeah,
that's a label too. So you can't say that.
yeah.
You have to say it's idiopathic.
It's idiopathic because the FDA and the Secretary of Health and Human Services has said you can't use this for anti-aging medicine.
Okay, so here's the deal. Doctors go to school for this. They're taking away our power one drug at a time. I mean, power to make people better. All of those. I always found that when I took tests for boards, many of my answers were wrong because I was 10 years ahead. I got in my first oral boards, I was taking ovaries out with a laparoscope. And they dinged me for that. But 10 years later, that was the standard of care.
It became the standard of care, yeah.
And I was having great results with it, and they thought that was just a terrible thing, and they criticized me for doing something that was 10 years ahead.
Something new and off the radar, which goes back to the music
Because-
man. Cash for the merchandise.
Right, but it's one of those things that's what doctors are chosen for. I mean, I know that you probably know this, but you don't just say, I want to be a doctor and get C's or B's, and you don't just decide you want to go to med school. You have to be chosen. You have to be at the very top of your graduating class in college.
Really competitive.
And you have to take the hardest classes, basically the hardest classes in any college curriculum. So the competition is huge. You don't make it unless you're really smart, and ethical. And so if you're going to learn to do this stuff and then someone says, you're done, you have to follow this little, not anagram, but this grid. You cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this.
Right.
Well, then I'm looking at a patient in front of me. I know 10 things I can do for them,
But
all
they're
of which
illegal or off-label.
or are not suggested for that reason. They're suggested for another reason. So then if they take away our off-label ability, then they might as well just have a computer sitting in front of you. Because a computer will give you whatever drug it is without considering anything about you or knowing you or looking at your past history or your family history. So all of these things we're trained to do, and governmental agencies don't want us to have power. And they don't want patients to have power. I'm afraid, they want to save money. Saving money is not helped by allowing people to be sick all the time. Then you just you use up more of the money for medical care. It makes no sense.
There are horror stories about doctors run amok.
Well, that's true, but
Joseph Mengele is an example.
well, really.
Well, really, because
I mean-
part of the agenda here is to say politically, we don't want you to be a guinea pig of some doctor who doesn't have good ethics or good standards.
Well, that's
you don't
true.
want to go into an office and have the doctor say, you know what, I'd like to try something new here and maybe become rich and famous. So I'm going to try this
Without
new thing."
any background and without
Exactly.
any research.
So you walk a fine line between honoring the training and expecting the judgment and the involvement that the physician brings to the table. And what you and I have always talked about in our podcast is the importance of that relationship with the physician and the patient. That you as a physician need to know that person. You need to know their health history, you need to know their background, their lifestyle, you need to know them, which means you have to spend some time with them. And when you're doing mass-produced volume medicine of 6 minutes per, no matter what the presenting issue is, and running 5,000 people a day through your office,
And that's not
can't
the
do that.
doctor's choice. They have to do that to stay in business because the insurance companies run that. You know, they're just 14
it's-
to 15 federal agencies that run your
Intersecting
doctor's
conflicts.
office.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have to be aware of all of them at all times and follow all the rules. Well, it's really hard to practice medicine like that. I mean,
Yeah.
so for the 2% of doctors who are Joseph Mengeles,
Yeah.
who should never have gotten
Yes,
into med school
absolutely.
anyway, who should have their license removed because they have a psychiatric disease or they just have a
They're
they're a
crazy
sociopath.
psychiatrists too.
I know.
Oh, okay.
That's who went in. Excuse me. I almost said that on camera.
You almost did.
And
Yep.
anyway, so let's police, and I don't mean send to jail. I just mean police, and doctors do. There are boards in every state that
But
police
systems-
doctors.
Bureaucratic systems work that way. It's easier to make a standard rule saying you can't than to allow power disruptions of people trying things on their own.
You're the historian. I don't really know, but I know when you say history does that all the time.
It does. And there's natural rhythms of that and for fighting that occur. And so you are on the leading edge of the fight that says we are dedicated, you and physicians like you, to the proposition that you don't have to get decrepit and old and die in misery and pain.
And in a nursing home for the 10 years.
You will get old and you will die, but you can live a fully functional life for almost all of that time if we can do certain things. And the thing that you advocate most strongly at this point in the research and your 11 years of experience doing it back you up is the replacement of testosterone as the first line of defense against the deterioration of aging. And the argument today is the same. Rather than apply growth hormones to the elderly, your strategy is to apply testosterone, both to men and women.
Right.
And then through the testosterone replication, the original body manufacture of growth hormone reoccurs.
Right. It goes up and we get leaner and stronger and more able to take care of ourselves. Our brain works better. So we are effectively healthier. And many of my patients lose medication. They don't need as many medications. They don't have chronic illnesses. Their autoimmune disorders get better. Well, this happens as well with the other anabolic steroid, which is growth hormone. But what happens is testosterone works up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then as people get over the 75 mark,
Right.
you
It's
have
not enough
to,
by
it's not
itself.
enough.
Yes.
So, and that's when you're at risk for really decreasing, becoming frail. If you look
Yeah.
at people who aren't on any hormones, you know their age, they're great, and then they hit either
hit a wall.
75 or 80, and then all of a
And you
sudden they
see
get
changes in
skinny.
just weeks.
My mother loved it. She was like, "Oh, look how thin I am." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, you have no muscle."
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't. But of course, I didn't say that.
Right.
But she was becoming frail, and so in the anorexic world of the 1960s, that was in her brain a great thing. It's
Well,
not good for you to
But
do
Kathy,
that.
you know personally that there are people out there, even medical professionals, that we both know in this community where we live and work, nurses and doctors, some of whom say you're a charlatan and a quack,
Yeah.
that what you do is bogus medicine, and some of whom say you've saved our lives and you've saved our patients' lives. You know that over the last 10 years, as you have begun to do this in this marketplace, neurologists, endocrinologists, who initially said, that's bogus, are now sending you their patients because they see the results that you gain. And you have to get up every day and do what you do because you believe in it, and know that there are people out there that will challenge you and label you positively or negative. You're a saint or a devil, and not give that any energy, because your focus is on the patient that you treat and the science that you learn that helps you treat other patients. And that's what doctors, I believe and you believe, ought to be doing. And
We should be looking for another
the
answer
bureaucratic system
for the problems
is what it is.
that
And
patients
so,
have.
So the answer that they have found for growth hormone and the ability to use it in treatment of the elderly is the term idiopathic. It's an idiopathic event.
I'd still be afraid to write it.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid.
You'll
I'd
be
be
challenged.
afraid to. I mean, this one drug has the consequence of going to jail if you write it.
Right. If you write it inappropriately.
Off-label. But it doesn't guarantee that they won't throw you in jail if you write it for idiopathic.
And
they don't
there
say
is no
that.
guarantee.
There's no
Nobody's
guarantee.
just crossed that line
so
yet.
I would be afraid to write this drug.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people who are not afraid to write this drug, but for me, it's a better answer to do the testosterone, which is very low in any kind of side effects and very high in making everybody feel better and growth hormone go up. So,
which is why we're doing this conversation today, because we want to remind you about Senate Bill 959. The United States Senate is attempting to make the same limitations on the administration of testosterone that they did on growth hormones in 1993. So if you don't want that to happen, you need to contact your senator and say, I am opposed to this Senate bill. Please take a look at this. Please be aware of this. Please don't do this.
And if you have a parent who's aging,
yeah.
then if you don't want to be taking care of them for the next 10 or 15 years, I'm
That's
serious.
a heck of a message. If you don't have to take care of your own mother.
No, if you love your parent and you want them to be well until they die, and if you don't want to be the caretaker,
framing, yeah.
I know, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't say it. If you don't want to be their minute-by-minute caretaker, then, and you wish them well, then they need to get some of their hormones back so that they can actually live that way.
My wife has done
It's
that for
important.
her father and her grandmother, and it is an exhausting, all-consuming responsibility night and day that takes years off your life.
I know, I've done it for my
you've done
father
it for
and
your
my
father and your
mother-in-law.
mother. Yeah, exactly.
Neither of which listened to me.
They said, you're not doing that experimental medicine on me.
But you know, thousands and thousands of patients later. See, that's why I can still do this. Every day somebody comes in and goes,
oh yeah,
my life has changed. Not just someone. Lots of people walk in and say, look at me. Look at the picture before. We always take pictures before and after. Look at my picture before. Did you even recognize me? And most of the time I don't. They look different. They look younger. They look healthy. They have blood flow to their skin. They've also listened to me about diet and supplements and exercise, but now they can exercise. They don't hurt all over. So all of these things make me more than certain that all the research I've gathered out there and brought together is right, that testosterone really does increase growth hormone, and I test it.
You can
but
demonstrably show them the improvement.
someday, somebody's going to need this, and maybe they need it right now.
Yeah.
And why can't they just make the law that people over 50 can get it, or people with a head injury can get it?
Right.
I mean, why does it have to be no one can have this? That makes no sense.
It's the nature of power and bureaucracy.
I know, but I just hate that.
Yeah, I do too.
It's either groupthink or it's individual think.
Right.
And groupthink is supposed to be to protect us, but it's protecting us right into a nursing home. And that's all I've got to say about that.
And that's all we have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Email your questions or comments to podcast@biobalancehealth.com. You can find the BioBalance Healthcast on iTunes and on YouTube. For more information about bioidentical hormone pellet therapy and other reverse aging solutions, visit biobalancehealth.com or call 314-993-0963. You can find Dr. Maupin on Twitter @Dr. Kathy Maupin and on Facebook at facebook.com/biobalancehealth. Find Brett Newcomb at brettnewcomb.com.